Welcome. I'm the host, Doug Finke. I'll be talking about scripting success, a deep dive into tiny PowerShell projects. And I do these live streams. I try to do them a few times a month. I'll pick different topics. Today, I'm going to do tiny PowerShell projects. A lot of the other times, I do stuff on artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. For those of you who don't know me, okay, so I'm a 15-time Microsoft MVP. I wrote a book called PowerShell for Developers a bunch of years ago, and I have a pretty popular module called Import Excel. It's got almost 4 million downloads, integrates PowerShell and Excel, so you might have seen me do some work on that. And I've also written one called PowerShell AI, which integrates ChatGPT at your fingertips, both in the console and your scripts. I get on and I do live streams about that. I do, in general, GPT, where the stuff is going. If you want to catch up with me, I'm on Twitter or on X, twitter.com/DFINKE. You can see there's my GitHub. You can get to my GitHub repos where I have lots of modules out there that I share the source code of things and ideas I come up with and then post them sometimes to the gallery. You can check out my YouTube channel at YouTube/@Doug Finke, Finke. Where's that? So I put everything up here. I put my meetups up there. When I have other speakers that come on, I have a bunch of playlists that show how to use the PowerShell AI module. I think I have about 20 videos on that. I also have put these live streams up there as well. So if you get on there, click subscribe, get on the notification, you'll know when I post these videos. And I try to cover lots of different technology that I think is fun, so it might be of interest to you. I'll put this in the chat, so if you want to check those out. Are you on Mastodon? No, I am not. I'm on X only. A little bit on Blue Sky, but I don't find that I don't see it really catching on at the moment. Mastodon, I don't get onto. I'm basically on LinkedIn and X and YouTube. So sorry if that doesn't fit, but that's where I am today. So today I'm gonna talk about tiny PowerShell projects. We'll get into that. I'm not going to go over it at the moment. It's basically 22 projects that I didn't come up with. I'll tell you where I got the ideas from, and we're going to go through some of the pieces. I think it's really interesting, but I also want to do a little promotion. So in a couple of weeks, I think the 16th, right? Yeah, November 16th, An's going to come on. She's going to show how to use the Import Excel module that I wrote, and she's going to take it through its paces and show how to do time series forecasting and impact estimation. She's done a bunch of presentations in Europe on that. And I just recently, like I said, in the last few months, heard about what she was doing, and I got really excited about it and asked her, and she graciously and generously offered to come on. So if you got here through the meetup, you can find this meetup and RSVP to it, and it should be in a couple of weeks. And I'll have some more announcements for next month, whatnot. Just also to bring your attention to some things. Next week is going to be, I think, a really exciting week. Monday, OpenAI. For those folks who are into artificial intelligence and GPT, if you're following that. If you're not, well, I guess you haven't been paying attention to all the hype. You're welcome, Mark. So OpenAI is going to have their first development conference on Monday, and they're going to live stream that. I'm very much looking forward to it. They're going to have some announcements. I expect to be really blown away by what they're going to talk about. I believe Microsoft is going to be on there. I don't know about NVIDIA. And then later in the week, I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, is going to be GitHub Universe. So GitHub's going to do their annual conference. And they're going to have a ton of stuff to talk about. GitHub Copilot, Copilot X. They've had some tremendous success with the AI integration in VS Code. We'll probably see some of that today. And we might even see some ChatGPT on the web. Don't know yet. But so I'm going to talk for about till about 2:15, maybe a little earlier. Don't know yet. Maybe longer. Depends on where folks are at with this. Let me see how many people have been here. If type of one, if this is your first time being on this chat. Mike, bunch of ones, awesome. A lot of newcomers, awesome. I'm going to assume that you haven't been to my meetups as well. Excellent. Hopefully most folks know PowerShell. I'm guessing that you do. That's why you're here. Cool. Good to always see some new folks. Okay, so let's more than one. Awesome. Well, hopefully see you down again. Get on the meetup. If you got here through the meetup stuff, I'll be posting more about these live streams that I do. Again, get on the YouTube channel, hit the subscription and notification bell, so that if you don't see it get the RSVP, you don't see it, I'll post it onto YouTube and you'll get notified when I do more live streams like this and the other ones and meetups and so on. Good stuff to come. All right, so let's talk about tiny PowerShell projects. So how many written some WPF stuff in addition to the modules? Awesome, cool. Yep, WPF is good stuff. I've been to your meetup, Pat says, but my first live stream. Hey, yeah, Pat, I used to come to the ones we used to do here in Microsoft in New York City at the headquarters. Long time no see. Yeah, WPF stuff in addition to modules. Yeah, that's some good work. If you look at one of my live streams that I did, I think a week or two ago, I showed how I took I drew a picture on a piece of paper of a UI that I wanted. I took a picture and I used some of the new features in ChatGPT, and I asked it to create a WPF application in PowerShell, and it did it. And you can see me demonstrate that a couple of weeks back. Pretty exciting stuff. So awesome. So let's talk about tiny projects. So I was looking at this just the other day again, and I can't believe it was 3 years ago I put this up. So I got the idea, came across this book called Tiny Python Projects by Ken Ewens Clark. And I looked at the book and I was like, wow, this is a really interesting approach to teach programming. I liked how he did it. He'd show you how to build stuff in Python and give you some concepts. He came up with 20 plus ideas of just tiny ideas of trying different things across the language, like parsing text and doing regex and doing other things. So I thought the projects were cool, but then he also integrated how to do unit testing against it. I was like, oh, that's really cool too. I like the way he did it. So I ported all of his examples and I talked to him a bunch of times. And I said, I'm going to just, redo everything in PowerShell, and I'm going to put it up publicly. And he said, sure, it'd be great. So if you get onto, I don't know how many people have here. We pop this into if you want to follow along. So that's where the repo is. Be great if you start it. It does good things for me. I'd appreciate it. If not, that's fine. So I'm going to hit a whole bunch of ideas that are not just PowerShell here today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to go chat about them. If I'm going to talk about it in an upcoming, as I'm talking, if I'm going to start talking about it, I'll cover it. If I'm not going to hit that point, we can put it in the parking lot and we can cover it afterwards or take more time. So I'm going to talk about Git. I'm going to talk about GitHub. I'm going to talk about Polyglot interactive notebooks and talk about code spaces, so on and so forth. So if you get to the repo, there's a bunch of different things. One of the things, I don't know how many people know, but if you're on any GitHub repo, if you hit if you hit period on the actual, when you're in the web page, right? I'm going to hit dot. It actually sets up your editor and it takes you into Visual Studio Code. Let's do that again. There we go. So it'll actually take you into, so you get onto the GitHub repo that you want, and then you hit dot. It will actually set it all up inside of Visual Studio Code on the web for you. I use this all the time. So it's a full editor. If you make changes, it will actually put it over here into source control, so you can actually do a check-in if you want to, or you can revert it. You of course have to have permissions on that target repo, but I find it great when I want to do simple changes to my repos. It's a great way to just get in, get out, and be done. If I'm on somebody else's repo, if I'm looking at code from Microsoft or Google or whatnot on GitHub, I hit the dot and I'm in an editor that I know, and I can actually get around the code much more quickly. I can find things. Depending on the language that you're looking at, it works like Visual Studio Code on your local machine. So if you want to look up symbols, or you want to look up different functions, it lets you navigate the code quite quickly and nicely. So I just hit the dot to I can now open up the 01 hello project, for example, and I can go take a look at that code. So it's really, really simple. Okay. And I can sit here and I can edit this, and then it'll save. And then you can see over here in my source control, there's one pending change. It shows that I actually changed that code. If I click on that, it'll actually show me the working tree. And if you're familiar with diffs or not familiar with diffs, this is a diff of saying, well, what was the code before? It's on the left-hand side. And then this is the changes I did on the right-hand side. It shows I put a minus here, that I deleted this blank line, but I added this on the right-hand side. And then I have the option to make a comment, and I can commit it, and I can change it. Or I can come down here, which is really cool, and I can click on the discard, and it discards the changes, and I'm back to square one. So this is a super useful thing. We're not going to spend time in this aspect. I'm going to do it all locally, but I just wanted to show you what this was about. GitHub is a pretty amazing platform. GitLab I don't play with much, but I know that it has similar ideas. Again, Microsoft bought GitHub a few years back, and when Microsoft does that kind of stuff, a lot of times it reduces the friction for you to get your work done. Even if you're a PowerShell developer or a C# or whatever, Go, Rust, Haskell, Lisp, whatever it might be. So the other thing I want to show you, so if I come over here and I drop down code, if you want to get a copy of what's going on, there's a bunch of things you can do. You can click on code, click on the local tab, and you can open it with GitHub Desktop if you have that installed. Or you can click open it with Visual Studio, or you can actually download the zip file if you're not comfortable with how Git works. If you are comfortable with how Git works, there's a few options. You can use the HTTPS way to get to it. You can do SSH style, or you can use GitHub CLI if you have that installed. So there's a bunch of ways to do it. I'm going to use the GitHub HTTPS, and I'm going to copy that link. If any questions, throw them into the chat, raise your hand, and we can unmute you. Happy to take questions if need be. So I have a directory on my D drive called mygit, and I'm going to say git clone. Okay, and I'm going to clone that. So now that actually just copied that project from GitHub to my local machine. Git is now set up, so if I make any changes locally, I can check things back into GitHub. So let's go see if I can change to tiny. Get that right. Change star TINY. Go. And I'm going to type in code here. And now I have code loading up on my local machine. Okay, now everything's good to go. So I have, just like I had in the web, I don't know if folks are using ICE, or they use Notepad++, or they use one of the JetBrains editors or not. They all should have the same similar concepts where they're integrated with Git. So let's see what I got here. I'll just do a reload required. We're done. Good. So now I have everything local, and I'm good to go. I want to show one more thing on the web. VS Code is amazing. I agree. That is definitely, not shared by everybody in the world, but yeah, I think VS Code is an amazing tool. I'm going to go back to code spaces. Let me get rid of this over here. I'm going to delete the code space I did earlier. So if you click on the code drop down, remember we're at the locals where you can grab the link to do a GitHub clone, or you can click on code spaces. And I have a dev container set up in the project, in the repo. So what that does is, if I say create code space, and you should be able, I believe you should have this, they give you 60 hours free of code spaces. It sets up an image in the cloud. And it's actually using the dev container that I set up. So in that dev container, I set up pieces like to install the PowerShell, to install PowerShell, when it automatically installs Visual Studio Code, and I ask it to do the plugins and the VS Code extensions that I need, like the PowerShell ones. I also have it install Pester, and Pester is the unit testing framework we have for PowerShell. It's been out for years, so on. It is installed. It installed WSL. Mike, could you say a little more about that? Which on the code space or on a local? So now this just sits and builds the containers. Again, you get 60 hours for free. So I found the image, builds the container. It's going to do a little bit more work, has to do a little bit more installing the container extension. Yep, there you go. So now I'm going to get the Visual Studio Code environment, but now I'm not just in the, I'm not in just the web page. I'm inside of the code space, and that also gives me a working terminal. If you just do the trick I showed you before where you say dot, what that does is it gives you the Visual Studio Code, but you don't get a what you don't get is a console. And here you see it's now installing Pester for me. That's all because of the dev container I have set up. So if you want to take a look about how that works, you can come down here and you can see how the dev container JSON works and the Docker file is working. This is awesome because you can give this to colleagues, friends, whatnot. You can set these up for folks, and then they can come in. If you don't want to install Pester, you don't know how to install Pester on your local machine, you can just use this piece here. And when you're done running, when everything comes up, it should work. And I think I have PowerShell installed. Excellent. So I type in PWSH. Oh, excellent. We have some happy people on today. Hang on a second while I see if I can. We're getting a little bombed here today. Let's see what else we got. Who else is causing issues? I used PS Autolab in the past. Yep. Cool. Yep. So as Mike is pointing out, there are definitely lots of options that you can do to set all these kinds of things up. So back to here, this whole dev container sets everything up, and I'm in here in a workspace, and I have a terminal running, and I can do things like invoke Pester, and this is all running on the cloud on a Linux box. So if you didn't want to install everything locally, oops, I lied. It should. I'm not sure what the issue is. I'm not going to try and debug it. I'll take a look at that afterwards. So, but you should be able to run everything up in the cloud, and it's one less thing that you have to worry about. Let me just remove this person here. And keep an eye out for any more issues. Okay, so we can see how we get into an editor straight away. We can get into code spaces if you want. Again, that's free. I think it's so between GitHub and VS Code, you got some really amazing capabilities. Let's get into some code. So what I liked about what this guy Ken did, Dan, you raised your hand, you want to talk? I have to be a little cautious here. Nope, I guess maybe not. All right. So what I liked about what he did is he comes up and he says, okay, let's create a hello world program, right? Write a program to enthusiastically greet the world. So each one of these directories are set up the same. It's got a README, tells you what the idea is. So, and then tells you the challenges. So write the program to greet the world. The program should also accept a name given as an optional parameter. And in this case, it would be -name because it's not Python. So since you can pass in a parameter using the -name, shows an example of how you'd run the script and use the proper parameter. And then at the end of it, you can invoke pester on the -test ps1 or all test.ps1 to ensure that the tests pass. This is why we can't have nice things. Yes. Sorry, you have the trolls. Oh yeah, it's all good. The trolls used to come on and be able to take over the screen and write things, and then the trolls used to came on and were able to figure out how to get into talk. So yeah, I don't want to turn off the chat, but yeah, it's going to happen, but it's no big deal. You jump on these things and kick them off and you're good to go. So, hello world tells you what he wants, tells you some of the different ways to do it, and then how you can test it. So it's a simple program, right? It's just a parameter. It's just a script file in this, and we'll get to the cookie cutter process in a second. And here's how it says hello name. Now, in the README, it's also saying, well, we want to be able to change, not just say hello world as a default. We want to be able to pass in a name and let it say hello with a name. So it shows you how it works, hello plus the $name. So how does it test it? So here's, this is a pester file. This is how you, a simple test. And again, I didn't really embellish on what was Ken did. I just looked at a lot what he did, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." So I ported it straight away, and I just and this could be so. Again, you'll learn a lot from playing around with all these different bite-sized type projects. They go in deep about a bunch of different things, but you can set these up for yourself, right? If you learn the concepts of what's going on, you can set this up for things that you're trying to test and work out on your own. So it's a simple describe. It's a before all. It's going to just pick out the program that it wants to work. And I think we have another one, so I'm going to say goodbye to that person as well. I see what they're doing. That's very cute. They raise their hand and lower their hand, and now they're going. All right, I'm going to ignore that. So I apologize. So it comes up and it gives 3 basic tests. And up top, I'm setting the $script.prg to, wow, this is going to really, there we go. All right, got rid of something else. To the hello.ps1, right? And that's what it's going to, so in this, it's going to use, that's the script it's going to consistently use, and by calling it in different things, like first thing I'm doing is make sure it exists. So line 7, there's a test path on it. It should be true. So if it doesn't exist, it'll fail straight away. If it does run, I'm going to use the call operator inside of PowerShell to call that script, and it should return hello world. And then the last thing is I'm going to call it with a couple of different parameters, universe and multiverse. And I'm going to set that command up inside this way, and it's a string with the actual, with the ampersand, and actually use an invoke expression. So it's just showing some ways that you can actually call the actual PS1 file. Now this is really interesting because I use this technique of testing as well as the building a program, so I can figure out what I'm trying to do and figure out different solutions, whether I'm trying to optimize or improve performance, or try different ways of passing parameters or doing certain kind of calculations. So the idea is you come up and you create your own solution 1, for example. Okay, you create the solution, you write it up. This test piece just stays the same. And then when you do something like all test, what that does is it looks for every solution star in that directory, right? And it removes the old hello 1. We set that up here on top, right? So we remove the old hello 1 or hello.ps1. And then for each file that there's a solution, it copies it to hello.ps1 and then invokes pester on the .test ps1, and then test ps1 says, oh, I'm looking for hello ps1, and I'm going to, let me split the screen here, right? It invokes pester on test on the test1, and let's open up test1. So every time, for every solution that you have in that directory, solution 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, it'll run a set of tests, right? It'll run the same tests against each solution. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I apologize for being distracted about people, the trolls. Let's go to 0, 1. So I don't know if I didn't explain that well, let me know, and I can go over it again. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to run all tests, and we should only get one. We'll run so this comes up and runs solution 1, and that should be it. So it does the discovery, and we're good to go. Right? So this just ran solution 1. Let's get rid of the README. So this ran solution 1, which is just takes a parameter, prints out hello. Hello, whatever, hello world as the example, and then it should be able to take a parameter, and the testing itself, the last one will say, okay, I want to pass in both universe and multiverse, and it should come back with the proper expressions, and that's in fact what it does. So now what happens if I go and say, well, I want to, instead of just passing a parameter, I'm going to copy solution 1, and I'm going to make solution 2. And here, instead of doing a concatenation of strings, I'm going to use hello. Oops, that over there. Hello, $a, right? Like that. So now I have it in as solution 2. I can just write my solution, and I'll come down here, and I'm going to run the tests. And one of them's going to fail. Okay, so solution 1 worked, and I get a whole bunch of red for solution 2. All right, solution 2 didn't work, but solution 1 still works. All right, so now I can take a look at my errors, and it says, oh, it's expected to hello world, comma, and I didn't do that, and the same thing for universe. Okay, so let me go back and put a comma in there. So now let's see if that works. We'll run the test again, and I can sit here all day long and test. Now it'll fail again because I want the bang! Exclamation point. Now if I run it, what I have is 2 working solutions that I can draw from. What do we got? This is why we can't. Okay, thanks, but I have to go eat my meal. Watch it later. No problem. Doug, do you mind going over it again? Thank you. Going over which part again? The whole thing. You can probably catch it on the rerun. Testing. Okay, we can go through a testing piece again. So the test, right? It looks for, before every it block, right? So before all the scripts, all the it blocks run, I'm going to just say, okay, it has to have hello.ps1. That's the script I'm going to deal with. And the first thing I do is test to see if that script actually exists, right? Test the path on it. If it fails, my testing will stop immediately, and then I can inspect and figure out what's going on. If that one works, I can go ahead and say, okay, ampersand, I'm going to ampersand that, meaning I'm going to use the call operator, which actually invokes hello.ps1. And I expect that just calling it as is, I know the default should be hello, comma, world, exclamation point. Then my final test, because I want to do some boundary testing on my parameter passing, I'm going to try and pass in universe first, and then I'm going to go again, try it again, and pass in multiverse, right? So, and here's some cool things about option, but I set up a string so that it can actually be invoked. So I set up a string where I'm going to do the call operator, call the hello one with either -n or -name. So I can call it 2 different ways, and then pass in the $val, right? Which will be either universe or multiverse. And then I expect that result at the end. Should be exactly hello, and then I replace $val. Now this is a little bit advanced, but you don't have to get this advanced. You can have very simple tests. So please let M Hunter in. He dropped after the chat. Nonsense. Okay. If I see him again, I will let him in. Then no problem. Thanks, Mike. So this test is standard pester stuff. You can set up your test as complex as simple. I only have 3 tests in here. You can do it as complicated as you like and whatnot. So the idea is you can, which we'll see in the next couple of folders. I just basically set everything up as solution 1. I set up an all test. So this is the same in every one of them. The only thing that gets changed is the file it's going to run, and the tests that you want to run changes. And then I can basically ruthlessly create as many solutions as I want to try and solve the problem. And I can keep the one that works, and then I can work on a second one or third one or a fourth one to see what happens. Like, for example, I could create a third solution, right? Let's do that. And instead of doing hello name, let's use, I'm going to use hello name again, but let's get this correct. And I'll use a -f parameter. I can see how that works, right? So that's another way you can do string concatenation and creation. So now I have 3 solutions. So if I'm working on this is a real project to a certain degree. This is a way that I can keep many different solutions around and see if they all run. And I can then refactor at will. I can ruthlessly refactor, right? And as we can see, I've made a bunch of changes. Like I now have solution 2 and solution 3. If I didn't like any of that, right, I can then choose these 2 solutions and I can undo them and say, you know what, I don't like those at all. Let me just get rid of them. Then that's the beauty of using something like a Git and using version control. My directory is now back pretty much to where I started, and I can use my original solution. So your testing can become as complicated as you'd like. You can use all test over and over and over again for any new projects that you want to come up with. This is not only a great way to start using these examples to learn more about PowerShell and things that you can do, but you can then apply the testing methodology to the things that you work with. Now, let's go to another one. So somebody actually just emailed me this week. Okay, and let's have a little more fun. Running a little late, but that's fine. That's what happens when you get trolls. So here's this program. This is write a program that will create. Is there a reason that the script scope is explicitly declared in the test? Can you say a bit more on that? Explicitly, which scope are you for the $script? Yeah, the reason I do that is that when I haven't done that before, I think it might actually show me. There's no it should work. It works either way. But I think, yeah, I get a warning and I didn't feel like putting that in. PSU's declared vars more than an assignment. Okay, so I get a PS script analyzer warning, and there's a couple of ways you can solve it. I take the lazy and easy way out, or one of the ways you can do it is by putting the script, and it gets rid of the PS script analyzer. You don't have to do that. That has nothing to do with the PowerShell code. It's just for working with VS Code easier. You're welcome. Thanks for asking. So back to Rhymer. Write a program that will create rhyming words for a given word by removing the initial consonant sounds and substituting other sounds. Note that the given word should not appear in the output, so cake will be omitted from this run. Right? So we want to rhyme cake, come up with all the rhymes, select the first 10, and then don't repeat cake. How's that for a fun, somebody comes up to you and says, write this for me. Well, I did. So we go to solution 1, and somebody sent me an email and said, hey, I'm looking at your stuff. I think it's really cool. What does this really mean? Right? So what is $word substring 0, first vowel, $word dot substring $first vowel? What is that actually doing? And that's an old trick way back in different programming languages. And I thought that was a really good question. That's actually what prompted me to go, hey, let me get on and do a live stream about what this thing is. I've never done that before. So this particular script does a lot of cool stuff. It does an invoke stemmer, which does all the management of finding each vowel, and it finds the first one, and then it uses a weird little thing to get, there might be multiple vowels, but I want to get the first one. So I use measure object hyphen minimum. I could have used a different approach, and that's how I can break off the vowels within a word and then begin to figure things out. Excuse me. And then setting up a bunch of prefixes. So here's how you do things like create an array type of string for prefixes, and you can take a set of characters and you can split them into a character array, so that you can then apply them, add this whole bunch of pieces to it, and then split those, right, based on the spaces. So these are cute little tricks. They're more than cute tricks. Maybe this is not something you typically do in your PowerShell work. Maybe you're dealing with more things of infrastructure as code and whatnot. But there are times or ways that you can begin to think about, well, how else can I use PowerShell? Well, this is one of them. So doing the prefixes, you can do the invoke stemmer $word, right? You get the start and the rest. That's how you can get, right? Because I come back here and I say, okay, give me everything up to the first character, and then give me everything after the first vowel character, okay? So then that's how you use two variables to get the before and the start and the rest. And then from there, you can for each on these prefixes where it's not equal to the start, right? Because that's what the word that comes in, and away you go. Now, I'm not going to go through explaining all the details on this. It could take quite a while. But again, go through as they go from like where this is the 14th example, but you can take a look. They get more complicated as they go on. So they become interesting tricks to do, how you do parsing, how you work with text management, and these ideas can plant seeds of like, oh, I needed to do, look this up. Maybe this can help me. I particularly like the gematria one because it uses regexes and you can do some really cool things with it. Highly suggest that you take a look at the README. And the cool part is, let's take the gematria one, right? So let's see if I get to the right place. We'll change directory to, 18. And I'll run all tests. Now, if you notice over here on the left, I have a solution 1. It's awesome. We're not gonna try this. So I'm gonna have to go look at that and figure out why it didn't work. Let's go back to, I apologize. So I knew these worked at one point, and I don't remember changing anything. Let's go to the rhymer and see if it also doesn't behave today. So now you can see I can use all tests. Doesn't matter which directory I drop into. I can, let's go to the scrambler, which is 16. And I can do all test. And you can see that I'm just sitting here and testing, and I can go in and say, okay, here's the solution in the scrambler. And I can now copy and paste this, and I can change how invoke scramble works. I can change the seeds, I can change the patterns from those regexes. I can see how other regexes work. I can call it solution 2, 3, 4, 5. The demo god got me today, exactly. Actually, if I had a little more time, I would actually step through and see how this, why I was complaining. So yeah, so these examples get a little more complicated as they go, but there's a lot of different pieces here. You get to see how to build different kinds of solutions for unusual problems that you'd be surprised that could help you in your day-to-day PowerShell work. And then you have a way that you can set up a framework to do all your testing, and you can grab something like all test, should work. You can grab straightaway test, and you're good to go. I think it's a common issue scripting in gematria PS1. Look at that. Somebody's paying attention more than I am. Is it in here? Oh, there you go. And I think you are correct. I was probably playing with, let's see. So this is the beauty of testing, right? It lets you, if you have tests that are set up, it lets you ruthlessly change things up. Is not recognized. Let's try and change directory. Let's see if this works. It might. Nope. Tests. Invoke gematria is not recognized. All right. Oops, the wrong one again. Did I copy over the wrong one? Okay. So it doesn't get recognized. Did I copy over test 1? Sriracha. Test. Okay, yep. So I see I was playing around with this. That's what, and I wasn't doing it yesterday. I think that might do it. Let's fingers crossed. And I lied. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go check that out. This used to work no problem. And I was playing around with trying script roots or just trying with a dot backslash or forward slash, and I was probably doing this up, trying to do testing up inside of GitHub Actions and whatnot. Let's see if I got all of them. Maybe not. All right, I'm gonna try one more time because I like to. And the winner is not me. Both of them failed. Okay, bummer. So again, playing with some of these things like word of the day, you can figure out how to read a CSV file. So that's what's really cool about it. So you can actually for yourself learn pieces, or you can actually, if you're interested in helping other folks out, you can build your own tests or exercises for other folks. It could be around these kind of concepts or your own concepts. And then when you provide it for somebody, you provide a solution that works, unlike what I do, where I don't provide solutions that work. You provide a solution that works, and then you let people, they can add solution 2, 3, 4. They don't affect the original solution, and then they can see if their stuff is actually passing the tests that you set up. So like, here's the test for the word of the, is this for word of the day? Yeah. So this is the test for word of the day. And you can actually take a look at this and see how different setup of tests work, different ways you may want to consider to do your testing. Okay, in test PS1, before scripting, after, yeah, that's, I think I did take that out, and but I have something else that's not happy. Yeah, I commented out the script root. Fantastic, this is very helpful. Good, I'm glad you liked it, G. Martin. Where and when will the recording for this be posted? Did you see the stuff? Want to learn from basic? Thank you, Doug. Awesome. G. Martin, did you see what I posted? Did you see the links I posted earlier in the chat? You can get on my YouTube channel. If you hit subscribe and notify, I will post this video there. Want to learn from basics? Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. If you don't see it, let me know. I'll repost them. And I'm going to go take a look at this. Now, I just want to do one more thing to wrap up because I think it's really cool. And I know I'm a little over time. Folks might have to get going. But for those who want to hang around, let's invite back the trolls. No, I'm only kidding. So let's go back to, so every one of these files, every one of these folders also has a file. Thank you, got a drop. Pradeep, thanks for coming. Yep, I will share the recording, get on YouTube, and you'll know when it hits that, as well as when I post other videos about PowerShell, as well as my meetups. And you know, make sure, like, if you found your way through here through our meetup, you'll know when I post new meetups, because I'm going to do more on this piece, and I know I'm going to do one in a couple of weeks on AI and GPT. So there's a file called hello IPYNB, and Microsoft came up. This is a Polyglot Interactive Notebook. You need to look up Polyglot Interactive Notebook, and you'll find the GitHub links that Microsoft has, and it shows you what you got to do to install it. You have to install a Visual Studio Code extension. So back to VS Code being really cool. You can run interactive notebooks. There's also a Jupyter notebook. That's what the Python world has used for 1,000 years. That's a whole cool conversation unto itself. But they've now made it with .NET Interactive. And what that means is you can run things like C#, F#, PowerShell, and there's a whole bunch of other features they've provided. I find it a super great way to document code, as well as show what make things executable. So what that means is, so here I have these are called cells, right? So for example, if I double click this is a markdown cell up top, and I can put regular markdown in, and when I render it or run it, it renders as markdown. I can have images in here, I can have lists, I can have unordered lists, ordered lists, I can put markdown tables in here, it renders all the goodies. What's really cool is then this cell, if you can see over here, it's a PWSH cell, right? So it means it's a PowerShell code. And this is like as if I typed this at the command line, right? And then you have a bunch of ways that you can actually execute this. I can either run it with the run button, or I can hit the Control Enter or Control Alt Enter. So now watch what happens when I run it. So this was from before, and at least this works better than Gematria. And it prints out hello world. So it actually ran that hello world piece that we built, right? So it ran this, and what's cool is it saved the results, shows the results here. Now, if I close this file, I'll close all of these, and if I reopen hello IPYMB, it shows the result. I can then take this IPYMB file, and if my colleagues, friends, and family have Visual Studio set up with the Polyglot Notebooks extension installed, I can give it to them. They can open it. They don't have to run anything, but they can actually see what the results are. Now, people in the Python world, they started using this back when they were doing genomics, and they were using, when they do their PyTorch and they do their machine learning kind of stuff. You can actually have all the stuff, all the matrices and the outputs of the different transformations that it does, and then you can hand this off to a colleague and you can say, hey, can you check out these results for me? They don't have to rerun the 20-minute application or the scripts that they built. They can just look at the results, and then somebody can actually double check or have feedback about it. So here I ran the first cell. In the second cell, I'm showing how you can pass in a parameter. I run that up and it says hello universe. And down here I can say, here's my multiverse. Now what's really, so that's, again, I ran all that, I can save it, and off we go. What kernel do you recommend? Just Jupyter? This is using, up here you see it's using the .NET Interactive kernel, right? So if I want to be able to run C# or PowerShell or F#, or some of these other capabilities, I need to be in the .NET Interactive kernel. If you want to run Python, you need to be in the Jupyter kernel. They also have a preview up on the GitHub repo where you can grab. They are actually extending this so it can also run the Python pieces. So now you can have in one. So what's cool too is I can actually create another cell here, and I can, instead of PowerShell, I can actually set it up to run C#. So I have C#. So now I can actually put C# in here, and I can share variables between PowerShell and C# in the same notebook. And that works with F# and other pieces as well. And they have a preview where they're adding Python to the mix. The other thing that's pretty cool is, which I'm not going to demo, I have other demos I've done on my videos up on my YouTube channel. You can do mermaid diagrams. So if you know what those are, they're like GraphViz. So you can do all kinds of flow charts and whatnot, and it renders directly in here. I also have a GPT AI PowerShell integration piece that lets you talk to GPT and say, hey, I want to show me all the NFL teams and who the owners are, and put them into a nice org chart, and then have it render. Give me the mermaid syntax, gives me back the mermaid syntax, and then generates it so it's in line. And you don't even see the syntax. It's just a PowerShell call to GPT with the question, and I then pass it back into its kernel so it can actually render the mermaid diagram itself. You can do things like SQL, you can do KQL, all kinds of good stuff. It's really cool environment, highly recommended, definitely worth learning. So yeah, every one of these pieces work or have a .ipymb file, an interactive Python notebook, that's what they call it. Lots of different reasons. You can come in here. I've built all these things and have run them. So if you don't want to run the actual program, you can see what the deal is. And in fact, I'm going to go back to Gematria because I reran this yesterday, or maybe I didn't. So let's see if I'm going to run it, see if I get the same errors. So this is what failed. The tests failed, but you can see it's actually working. So the actual code works, but the tests are failing. So I'd have to go, maybe I may change the tests. I don't know. But again, I ran these, I saved these, I put them up into GitHub. So if you want, you can just go up and look at them. Now, what's really cool, and then we're going to wrap up on this. And thanks for everybody for hanging in there. Let's go to Tiny Projects. I'm going to go to the Gematria. Yeah, let's go there. And when I click on the Gematria, so now I'm inside of GitHub on my web browser, up in the cloud, right? So there's no VS Code at the moment. And I'm going to click on the Gematria IPYMB. And what's cool is GitHub renders it for you. Now you can't run this stuff, but it renders it. which is really cool. So now if I wanted to share this, I don't have to actually hand out my file. I can just send you a link. So if I paste this in here, you folks can actually, waiting room, who cares? Is not in this meeting. All right, that's fine. Let me paste this in. If you want to take a look, you can see it actually rendered with the results of the code that was in the code cell. Best way to debug is to delete tests until everything passes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Comment everything out and then just introduce it back in. It's almost like how you do with elimination diets, right? Something's making me sick when I eat it, so let me just take something out of my diet until I find out what it was that I ate. And then I find out, oh, it was the pizza with the pineapple and the anchovies on it. So that's a quick tour. Any questions? I hope people found this interesting. I'm going to probably do a couple of more of these. Thanks, Greg. Awesome. I'm going to do more of this on this particular one because I think it's good to go through checking out how some of these things work, like things like tic-tac-toe inside of PowerShell. I'm glad you found it helpful. You can drop me a note here. Definitely follow me on the different platforms. Let me just post those again. I apologize for sending people off before. Follow me on X, unless it's it's not what you like. Just clone the repo. Looking forward to checking out. Awesome. Glad you liked it. Yes, I enjoy this stuff. Really neat stuff. Now I have even more to learn. Hey, the more you learn, the more useful you become typically. So the point, so there's my stuff. If you follow me on Twitter, send me a direct message or find another way to send me a DM. If you have questions, happy to take emails, whatnot, and let me know what you want to see. I'm happy, I'm going to go drill down on this more, this particular one. I have a bunch of other PowerShell modules out there that I'm going to go down. I have never done one on my own channel on the Excel module I wrote. So I'm looking to do that next. So if that interests you, great. If not, great. If there's something that does, let me know. Happy to check it out. Everybody have a good Wednesday. And sorry about the trolls. Rob Halford prefers PowerShell. Absolutely. I'm gonna have to look up a PowerShell, something with power in it that Judas Priest does. All right, folks, enjoy. You're welcome.